Hello, good morning. Thank you for joining us online. Of course, as always, do not hesitate to share comments, questions if you have. And this morning, I'm really happy to start this session. So the session 2 for the Blue Manager, Blue Value Chain, and we're going to travel a little bit with Clara between France and Spain. We have Giovanni, Italy, Iceland, if I'm correct, Wiliam, a little bit also around the world. We're going to have also as jury members, I'm really happy to have Jean-Vincent de Ingracia next to me from Métropole Nice Côte d'Azur, NITODA president. We also have Martin Colognoli and Guillaume Leporte for also visit. Thank you for joining us this morning. So we will start first with Clara, then Giovanni will have a little break, and we will finish with Wiliam. So I'm going also to welcome Clara. Hi, Clara.
Good morning.
So it will run as always. You will have 15 minutes of presentation and 15 minutes of questions. Okay, so I'm just going to share also your slides, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for waking up this morning. I'm going to present you my work that I've done with the NGO Sustainable Fisheries Partnership, where we try to engage the private actors for more ethical and sustainable practices for the squid supply chain. It's a 10-month consultancy that started about a month ago. So what I wanted to start with is maybe to introduce or maybe reintroduce myself. So this is me, this is Diving Clara. I've worked about 5 years as a dive instructor, mostly in Southeast Asia, where I work with the local communities there. And unfortunately, I noticed firsthand there the damages on the marine ecosystems with the years, maybe coral bleaching. Also, you can see here pollutions with one of my captains in the Philippines removing a tank from the water. And this is one of the big reasons why I joined the MARRES program. But this is also me. This is, let's say, corporate Clara. I've worked 6 years as a management consultant, both in firms and as an independent. So I have my own company. And as you can see, I've worked with big international corporations. And the reason I'm showing you this is that the topic that I'm going to talk about is not glamorous. It can even be a little bit scary. But since I'm dealing with industrials, I think with these double skills, I might be in the perfect position to tackle the squid supply chain issues. So let's dive in with some introduction about the squid fisheries and some numbers. First of all, the landings, the global squid landings have increased by about 50% since the 90s. This is mostly due to the fact that they entered the human diet. They were mostly used as bait before that. And in 2023, the landings reached 3.3 million tons in the world, which is roughly the same as tuna. So it is a species of importance for the human diet now. Another interesting figure from a study of Global Fishing Watch is that 86% of fishing vessels with AIS, so that's the larger ones, today operate in unregulated areas. Unregulated doesn't mean illegal, but still. And the main thing that leads me to my issue today is that the squid supply chain is very complex. They can be 5 to 10 intermediates from the moment it's fished to the moment where it reaches your plates. So they can be exporters, importers, wholesalers, traders, processors, aggregators, disaggregators. And all this happens in different countries and continents with different regulations. So that's a very, very complex value chain. And so that is to the issues of the squid fisheries. As I mentioned, there is little management. Squids are only part of 2 regional fishing management organizations and very little control. Also, due to the very complex supply chain, there are lacks of transparency and traceability. Sometimes just a black box, like we don't know where it's going to and when. And also, I was really surprised to know that our level of controls, for instance, in the EU and the US, for imported seafood are very low and actually very recent. Another issue is that since these were of little commercial importance in the past, there has been little scientific research on this. It's growing now, but we need, more of this. And also, since a lot of the fishing happened in the high seas, some figures can be unreliable. And due to the fact that there is little knowledge about this, there have been proofs of misidentification of squid species and also mislabeling on the end produce in the supermarkets. Another another issue is that since a lot of the fishing happens in the high seas, it's very controlled what's happening. People stay on board of these boats sometimes for months in a row, and there have been strong evidence of human rights and labor rights abuses. And finally, even though most of the fishing occurs through jigging, we're going to see some images at the end about that, there is still social fishing happening with some issues with bycatch. So that leads me to sustainable fisheries partnerships. That's the NGO I'm working for. And our goal is to reach 100% of sustainable seafood by acting on the entire value chain. So obviously not on our own, but on the entire value chain means that we work end to end, from the fishers to the suppliers to the end buyers, and not only for squid. The NGO works on 3 pillars. The first one is that we're very much science-based. More than half of the team is made of analysts, fisheries analysts, or market analysts. The second is that we're in a continuous improvement mindset, meaning maybe disengaging a little bit from the certification systems such as MAC, but really trying to show like continuous progress. And the third pillar is, even though we work mostly with the private actors, we also do some policy advocacy so that, you know, the changes we want will get embedded in law. And so within SFP, we created the Squid Supply Chain Roundtable, for which I'm working. And it's a working group of voluntary squid suppliers that want to work more sustainably and more ethically. And so we support them with their improvement projects. So we support them with secretariat, coordination, stakeholders engagement, but also we have some tools for them, such as project management frameworks and some fisheries profiles and things like this. But we still want the projects to be led by the industries because they will be the one benefiting from it at the end. And mostly we don't want greenwashing. So for the long-term goals of the Squid Supply Chain Roundtables, they are divided in 4 streams. The first one is to improve the governance and participation of the roundtable itself. The second one is to work on the transparency and the traceability of our members first, and then on a more global scale. The third point is that we want to promote science-based management. So that means first improving the science, and second, working with the regional fisheries management organizations so that they include squid in their scope. And the last one is to educate on human rights due diligence so that our suppliers, you know, can better pick their producers. The secondary goals of this project are mostly for myself. As I mentioned, this is a consultancy and this is my first one in the marine sector. So I'm hoping that this would lead to more projects for myself and also maybe the opportunity to build an expertise in a sector that I think today might be a niche, but is quite trendy. And another thing that could help me with that is that since it's coordination position, I'm at the center of a very rich ecosystem. So here in purple, you have like the members from SFP, so the roundtables, but also some analysts, fishery markets, and also some expert consultants, let's say on small-scale fisheries, or we have like some local consultants engaging with the local fishers associations. It is quite a senior team, so it's good for me to be around this kind of people. And then on the external partners, we have obviously the squid suppliers, the members of the roundtables. They are the ones I'm reporting to, plus some other external types of partners. So here we have other NGOs that we collaborate closely with and philanthropic organizations. One of those is actually funding my project right now. Then we have some international organizations such as the EU Illegal, Unreported and Unregulated Fishing Coalition, and also the FAO. We're working with them for a project on a unique fishery ID. And in the fishing sector, let's say we're in touch with the Regional Fisheries Management Organization and also some national squid fishers association. So really like a rich ecosystem and a lot to learn from me. As I mentioned at the beginning, I started about a month ago, so I thought I would zoom in on some of the topics I've been working on. The first two are concerned are about the roundtable itself. So the first one is the support of the roundtable. We had to do quite a thorough onboarding process with my supervisor because she will be going on a sabbatical leave in 3 weeks, so I will have to take over. And also, we want to publish by the end of the year squid sector report. So we're starting writing that, focusing on the main species of squids. Another reason why I was hired for this job, due to my past experiences, is that we want to assess the performance of the roundtables, of this roundtable. So the first thing that we did is we did like a basic assessment of the suppliers, the members, like, checking on their website, what commitments they have, where they're sourced and things like this. And also we want to compare how they assess performance with other commodities. So it can be seafood, such as tuna, but also other types of commodities, for instance, coffee. And the idea is that we would inspire from all these best practices to develop a relevant set of KPIs and a methodology to really track the progress and assess the impact of our roundtable. And below are two more focused projects that I've been working on. The first one is a digital traceability project for the Ilex argentinus. We're trying to track end-to-end at least one lot of squid. So we selected some of our members and we kicked off the project, and using like a digital tool to track the lots. We're in the process of collecting data. We're hoping at the end, that since we're having a bottom-up and top-down approach, that we might fill the gaps. We're not even sure it's going to be possible, but at least we're trying, and it will at least we'll see, where are the gaps if there are any. And our objective is to publish a report by the end of the summer on this. And another topic that is quite different is that today there is some squid fishing happening in New Zealand with little management and no knowledge about the stocks. And the thing is, our suppliers have raised the concerns that the end buyers are asking about more warranties, about the sustainable sourcing of this squid. And so we wrote like a letter of attention to be sent to the National Squid Fishers Association. We collected signatures from our member to try and push them to at least start with the stock assessment. And so next steps will be to meet with them. Some financial aspects, maybe you get the reference here. Most of it is confidential, but I can tell you that my project is funded by a very large USD grant that will last several years. That this project is about 1.5 to full-time equivalent per month, and that there was no personal cost for me. I'm being paid, actually. But I thought it would be interesting to get into the business model of SFP. As you might see, they have a revenue of $10 million in 2023, so it's quite consequent, and 75% came from foundation grants. But you can also see that 6% came from government grants, and since SFP is an American NGO, and those 6% were from USAID, they will be gone in the next years. So we can also see why it's important to diversify your sources of revenue. And also, since we're an NGO advocating for transparency, we also have to be transparent about the way we spend the money. And so of all this money, 77% go to the programs themselves, and about 23% go to support services and fundraising. So I thought it was interesting, to see this, how this break off. And maybe what I wanted to do is finish with some personal thoughts and critical thinking. The next images can be a little bit rough, so let me know if you want me to post them. So this is the reality I'm working with. Here on the left side, you can see jigging vessels. So, the squids are being hauled on the boat. There are a lot of them. It's very impressive how this machinery work here. It's a lot of squids here. And then the squids, they travel like thousands of miles. They have a huge carbon footprint. They end up in frozen bags, or maybe those canned prepared calamari that you eat in Spain, for instance. And then in the supermarkets, you might recognize some names here. And although I wish these systems didn't exist, they do. And I wondered, if I was an enabler by maybe working on this topic. But the issue is that today we're working in the dark, really. We don't even know what's happening. So the first step towards fixing this problem is to bring transparency. And so that's what we're doing at SFP. And also trying to improve the scientific knowledge and engage the industries to work in a more ethical way. So some final thoughts. What I like about this project is that I think what we all want to do is have impact. And I think this project will do that, because what we do is that we change practices early on in the value chain. We ask the industries to lead themselves the problems, since they are the origin of a lot of these issues. And we bring transparency to the consumers instead of asking them to consume more responsibly in the supermarket. So I hope we'll achieve great impact with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Clara. So I'm going to open the floor for the first questions. Guillaume, do you want to start?
Yes. Hi, Clara. Thank you very much for the presentation. And I think I have one question related to the last point you mentioned about the reality of the industry. So if I understood correctly, you are working with big companies with big economic interests. So how do you balance in your discussion with these kind of stakeholders? How do you balance their will of economical growth and the need to protect the species? And did you already have some tension issues with these kind of stakeholders to bring them to the table?
So the members we're working with are voluntary members that want to work in a pre-competitive way. It means that they want to be ahead of market, to work more sustainably. And there are several reasons for that. The first one is that it's not in their long-term interest that we empty the oceans. And the second is that there is a stronger and stronger demand for more sustainable produce, from the markets. So their idea, is that they get ahead of the market. Of course, there is still some commercial aspects behind it, it's not all, but whatever the intentions, if they're improving, I think then we reach our goal, And so far, we didn't have I didn't notice any tension, because they are volunteer, to work like this. And obviously, we're not addressing the whole market. For instance, Chinese has a huge fleet that fish squids, and they're not part of our scope, because most of them don't want to be transparent and things like this. So we're addressing a part of the market.
And do you talk about, for example, quotas or limitations of takes with the stakeholders? And also you mentioned some work you are doing at the NGO on policy changes. What policy changes and lobbying are you doing? Is it related to environmental aspects, to limitation of takes, to economical aspects?
So there are two answers to your questions. The first one is that squid is fished in national waters. In that case, it's the country itself, that decides the total allowable catch. And there are some instances where it's, for instance, in the Falkland Islands, where it's really well managed. And the second issue is that a lot of the fishing happens in the high seas. So this depends on the flag country of the vessels. And there are highly migratory species. And so far, they're only parts of two RFMOs, Regional Fisheries Management Organization. So that's the advocacy that we're trying to do, at least for the squid, is that to try and, bring squid on the table of those organizations, so that there is more management and more control.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jean-Vincent, do you want to?
Yeah. Thank you for this presentation. I know that it is only 1 month, but this is a very big project with big issues. I have a question about the origin of this big boat. this kind of big fisheries is in the Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, Mediterranean Sea, all around the world?
So I have a slide for you. I don't know if you can put my slide back on the screen. And I know this one's for you also, Crystal, because you asked me. So here you have like the 5 most common types of squids, you know, and most of them are in the Pacific and the Atlantic along the American coast, let's say. And those 5 types, they represent about 75% of squid landings. So this is where a lot of it is happening. But the problem is that since there is a lot happening at high seas, some figures are not, you know, that reliable.
Okay.
And then if for your, sorry.
Continue.
And then I was going to say, for your information, in red, the red pins are the market destinations. You might notice, you know, they're all in the north.
Okay. And how can you estimate the impact of this population without knowing the state of each population of squid?
So there are some stock assessments, you know, that are being performed. The difficulty is that they are a short-lived species. The lifespan is about a year, so it's like a new population every year. But there are some stocks assessments in some part, and then also what we estimate is the landings. But also for us within the roundtable to assess the impact, we have a tool that is called Metrics. That is a paid tool where that's also how we fund ourselves, you know, where our suppliers, they have to enter all their landings, where they fished it with what fleet. And then we can see, you know, which percentage is considered as sustainable or managed or, you know, so that's how we can assess also the impact.
Okay. And I have a last question about the approach. These big fisheries, so is in the ocean, etc. But in this big organization of sustainable fisheries, have you in a way to make a research about the local communities, the local fisheries, the differences between the type of fisheries, etc.?
Yes, we do. Actually, like Sustainable Fisheries Partnership is split in, let's say, 3 parts. One is dedicated to fisheries itself. So we have like people working with fishers, whether industrial or, for instance, for the squid in Peru, all of the fishing most of it is artisanal. So there are about like 4,600 artisanal boats. So we have local people working there with the fishers. The second part is my team, where we work on the suppliers, so let's say the middle of the value chain, and then we have another team working on the market, you know, like the end buyers. But we don't always act on the entire value chain. For each species, for some species we do, but for some of them we act on one or the other part, you know. But we do have like people on the ground, let's say.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Martin?
Thank you, Clara, for this presentation. I have 2 questions. The first one is about this squid. Is what Ilex Argentinus you worked on, right?
For one of the projects, yes, that's the.
Yeah. Can you tell us more about the species? You know, like for this particular project, like the biological cycle, or you know, like things we should know about this squid.
Yeah. So this squid is mostly in the south of Argentina and around the Falkland Islands. And they are like, as I mentioned, short-lived and usually self-porous, meaning they reproduce, you know, only once in their lifespan. And they are like very affected by the oceanic conditions during the juvenile phase. Depending on the temperature, you know, they will be able to grow larger and live longer or no. So, and there is, due to that, and sometimes also due to the fishing efforts, there is very high interannual variability, sometimes by an order of magnitude, you know, like times 10 between 1 year and the other.
How long do they live? What's their you know, like
between 1 and 2 years, depending on the
Okay.
conditions during juvenile phase.
And do they have a migration cycle, or they stay in the same place?
No, they migrate, and they're transboundary. So this is also they're quite complex to manage. But there is still, like, for instance, for the Ilex argentinus, they have identified 4 different stocks, but this is still early on, you know, in the research.
Okay. And why don't they fish them with the nets? Why they use the jig?
The jig is like more selective, actually, type of gear. So the jigging, basically, you have a line with hooks going down, like shaking a little bit, and then going up. And it's quite selective, except for the size.
Okay.
So there is very little bycatch.
Okay. And last question about the control of the squid suppliers. How do you envision to control on the field, like technically, practically? How do you control those fishermen?
So the control of the fishermen basically depends on the country where the squid is landed. Each country is supposed to have, like, you know, controls at port. And so that's how it's being controlled. I don't know if that was the answer to your question.
Well, so you control just at the ports when they come back. There is no control in the sea.
But little, that's the problem, because a lot of this happens in high seas.
Yeah.
And there is also, you know, transshipment happening. So because the value chain is quite complex, you know, there are transshipment happening also at sea. So stock being transferred from one boat to the other, and the chain being so complex, every link is a possible enter for illegal fishing.
Okay, so it's a migration species, and it's impossible to control what is fished when it's not on land, right?
Well, it would require, like, a lot of resources to control what's happening at seas.
Yeah.
And this is also, you know, in that regard, the BBNG treaty is interesting, because, you know, there will be, like, shared resources to control what's happening in the high seas, maybe creating MPAs. So that's something that could be interesting for us.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Well, we do still have a little bit of time, so I don't know if one of you have a last question you will ask. No, all good. Okay, I can turn then just to the audience, more like a general speaking question, if you want to Clara.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the volunteer fisheries that you contacted. How are they sustainably like fishing, or is it more in the value chain that they're trying to be more sustainable, or the seasonality of it, like how they put it into practice?
So you're talking on the fisher's side, right?
Yeah.
So it really depends on. Sorry, I was seeing a message. It really depends on the country and how it's fished. So if it's like industrial fishing, you know, they can be like total allowable catch provided by the country and allowed types of gears. But what I can, for instance, tell you is that, as I was mentioning, you know, in Peru before, they had like a huge artisanal fleet, like, well, they still have it, like 4,000 plus small scale boats, but it was not organized. So, you know, there was a lot of it going to the black markets and things like this. And the way we work at SFP with the local fishers is that we're trying to have like a bottom-up approach, and we try to help them to organize themselves, to create cooperatives and associations, so that their voices can be heard when all the controls and processes are being decided.
Thank you.
Cool. Last, no? Okay. Well, thanks so much, Clara. Well done again. And so I guess we will pass to Giovanni.
Thank you.
For time to set up.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Oh, I just share. Yeah. You were followed on YouTube, so for you. Before I forget.
Thanks.
So Giovanni, here is your comment.
Thank you.
That you can take.
I should just stay in front of the camera.
So the camera will be just look. I'm adding it. You will see it yourself. It's loading. I don't know what's going on. Up.
So mandatory for me.
Why is it that? Well.
Oh, okay, cool.
No, wait a minute.
Okay.
I do have an issue. It seems that it's not working. Okay. Okay, better.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry for that. But yeah, I can move a little bit depending on where do you prefer to be?
Whatever, I mean, here is fine.
Here is fine. So
Yeah, sorry.
No, but like this we can see you.
Okay, sure, sorry.
It's here, yeah.
Cool.
That's perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so Giovanni, as for Clara, 15 minutes of
Yeah.
presentation, then 15 minutes
Oh,
of
same time.
question, of course. I'm here for that also.
Yeah, okay. I have to watch.
Okay.
So, hi everyone. I spent almost a month in Iceland to assess and study the traditional knowledge of seaweeds in the island, and also to see the innovation they have and how seaweeds affect the traditions of the country. And Iceland is a country that is renowned for its beauty, for the tourism, and also a lot of things that we don't like overfishing and whaling. But it's really important also under the lens of their food culture. So before starting, I urge to tell you a bit more about myself. Because I'm no biologist. I have a degree in gastronomic sciences and a degree in ethnobotany. So the reason why I joined MARRES was to enlarge my knowledge, to enrich my knowledge of plants, not just terrestrial plants, but whatever grows and eats green, red, or brown in the sea. And I'm also an entrepreneur, so I have a business in Milan, so I couldn't do 6 months of internship, so I had to do what I've been doing the last year, so field work and study local traditions. And I was born in Europe, so I was raised with the idea that we are in the best place, with the best food, with the best weather, and we have all the problems to the solutions. But of course, that's not true, because everywhere I went, I found traditional, endemic people with traditional knowledge following their local problems, mostly caused by anthropogenic pressures. And solving these problems with traditional knowledge. And this traditional knowledge can be used also in the westernized world to solve local problems. And so going back to the research, I spent 2 weeks in Vestmannaeyjar doing some questions, asking some questions to locals about their knowledge about seaweeds. Then I moved in the West Fjords to assess how seaweeds are farmed. And it was the first time in my life. And between the two places, I've spent some time in Reykjavik, following companies that process seaweeds for human consumption, so microalgae for human consumption. I'm going to go very quick on this because we have 15 minutes, but this chart in a nutshell is like the differences between the Mediterranean basin and the Nordic countries. So in the Mediterranean, we have a lot of biodiversity. We go to the supermarket, we go to the farmer's market, we find everything we need. And we sometimes complain about what we find in winter because it's not enough for us. But in the Nordic countries, it is, or better say it used to be, that our best winter is their worst, our worst winter is their best summer. So they have less biodiversity. And what they had to do in the past is to reinvent and reuse what was in the wilderness. So 21 years ago, some Nordic chefs reunited and they founded this movement, which is actually a philosophy that is rooted in sustainability, locality, cultural heritage, seasonal ingredients, going foraging, and fermenting. And the reason I use the word reinvent, because this is what we used to do 100 years ago. Then we had fridge, then we had the freezer, the green revolution, the globalization. So now we can have avocados also on the moon if we want. And what is important about this movement is that it enhances the perception of people of that everything we have in the wild, it can be eaten. Sometimes for just one time, but everything can be consumed. So Iceland has 2,000 species of seaweeds in total, and among those, only 25, 30 are considered edible. But the research on macroalgae for human consumption is really weak, so I wonder how many we can find in those 2,000. And I've listed only 10 because those are the most, I would say, famous used. And among these, for sure, the third on the left is the most interesting one. It is Polyphonia lanosa, and it's not even a seaweed. It's just an infestant growing on Ascophyllum nodosum, which is the one on the right. But the cool thing is that it tastes and smells like truffle. So very, if we want to say cheap truffle found in the wilderness, because there is a lot of this. And so in Vestmannaeyjar, I had to interview 33 people to check about their knowledge. And I have to say at the beginning, I was a bit disappointed because I thought the knowledge was wider. But 85% of the people answered as the first seaweeds they know. So the questions were, what are the seaweeds you know? What seaweeds do you use in the kitchen? What do you eat at your household? And other questions. 85% of 33 informants said Palmaria palmata, which is called syrup in the area. And 50% of these 80 consume Palmaria palmata as a snack, so they just go forage, they dry it and they eat it like a snack, like a chip. And 50% that's not bed and breakfast, but it's bread and butter, but it had to be shorter. So they put bread with butter and syrup also for breakfast. And as you can see, all the rest is really limited knowledge. And bear in mind that 2 out of 33 informants were experts and foragers. So in Saccharina latissima, we have 12%, which is almost nothing because the 50% were 50% of these 12% were actually professionals, and they were the only one that can actually answer how to use Saccharina latissima, because the others, they had just seen it. It's beautiful, it's long, but they never used it. And there is a lot of confusion also when it comes to the term seaweed, because probably the most difficult part of going into the field when you ask questions to informants is that there is no right or wrong answer from them. Maybe you are asking the wrong questions. So if I go to an household and this guy tells me, okay, for breakfast we eat rocks, I have to report it, I have to write it because maybe it's true. Or maybe I'm asking something that is not correct. For example, the term seaweed in Iceland, for some people is not clear what the seaweed is. Number 6, a person replied Mertensia maritima, which is oyster leaves, which is a plant that grows in the coast. So there is no distinction between what is close to the coast and what's in the sea, because not everyone is aware also of low tide, high tide. So nobody has ever gone foraging for seaweeds. And as you can see, the number 2 is blank, because actually number 2 in the ranking of the most answer that I got is not seaweed, but it's not working. Suspense. Okay, we love burgers. So the answer on how many seaweeds do you know? How many do you eat seaweeds? The answer is we love burgers. So this was like 55% of the informants. And this was actually the answer that was a turning point in the research, because it made me realize why Icelandic are not consuming seaweeds. There is a chart, is the Icelandic population from the Second World War to today. Like Second World War, there were 150,000, and they were totally independent on the food they consumed, so they could produce everything they needed, mostly fish, but also a bit of agriculture and a lot of tomatoes. And by the end of this year, they will reach 400,000, and they're not independent anymore, so they depend a lot on imports, which makes it very fragile. But what happens is that Iceland was an American base during the Second World War. So the United States also built the modern airport. So all the Americans wanted food from home, so they started importing their food culture, which is burgers and fries, which was already consumed in Iceland, but not that high. And what happened also around the 60s, before the 60s and the 70s, the only source of vitamin C in Iceland was Palmaria palmata. So it was really the urge to eat it. In the 70s, the first oranges arrived. So what happens if you have a seaweed on your left hand and an orange on your right hand? You go for the orange. We all do that. And for them, it was also like a fancy product. It was like a tropical product. And also our body needs energy. So we go for sugars and carbohydrates. And so what's happening right now is that Icelandic food nerds are trying to reinvent the way they use seaweed. So for example, we have Ascophyllum nodosum, which is used for capers. We have Saccharina latissima, which is sugar kelp used for fermentation. So we can make kimchi out of it in the Korean style, but with Icelandic fermentation techniques. And we can also use it as a cooking container. So instead of using foil, we can wrap the fish and put it in the oven. And the result is the same without chemicals. And the problem is that innovation is really fragile, because if innovation succeeds and it's repeated in time, you have tradition. Without it, you don't have any tradition. The tradition stays the same. For example, tomatoes, when they arrived in Europe 400 years ago, they were used for 50, 80 years, just an ornamental plant. Nobody used to eat tomatoes. And then someone decided to eat them, and now they are a staple in the most of the cuisine. Pasta and pizza in Italy, just to mention too. But what happens if you cut the stream of innovation and tradition, because they talk to each other, they fight to each other, they talk to each other continuously. But what happens if you import something and you stop using what you have, and you have the other food, you forget about your knowledge and about your traditions. So you have a loss in diversity because you stop using something. So my kids won't learn that, and the kids of my kids won't learn that, and that knowledge is gone. And also you have a generational gap of knowledge. So I had people informants from like 60 to 70 years old that told me, yeah, my granny used to eat seaweeds. So 5 generations ago, so a long time ago. And this can lead also, it's not the case, but it usually leads to devastating effects in the diet. When you change the diet of a population in too short time, you have cardiovascular disease, you have obesity, and these things happen to the Paima Indians and the Nauru people. Just 2 examples that I like to make, because Paima Indians and Nauru people were colonized both by the Brits and then from the Germans. And decolonizers deviated the rivers, changed the ecosystem. Of course, they found some natural resources, they have to dig for it. And so the local people that used to be very fit and very muscular and very healthy, and also craving on hunting and gathering, eating wild fruits and wild berries, they become sedentary, and as you can see from the picture, obese. And Nauru people in Paima Indians are one of the most obese population in the world, with the highest cardiovascular disease and blood problems in the world. So the problem is, how can we convince people to eat seaweeds? I mean, we don't have to convince people, we don't have to force people to eat seaweeds. But first of all, we could start talking to fish farmers, because it is proved that a seaweed farm enhances the quality of the water, enhances the nutrients in the water. So if we convince fish farmers to have also seaweed farm close to their fish farm, they could enhance the quality of the fish. They could have probably less death in the fish stock, and maybe if the market starts well, also another income. We can take the example of people that has made has treated fish in a different way. Josh Newland, Australian chef, is the first one who invented the fish butchery. So when we go to the butcher, we don't ask for a cow, we don't ask for a sheep. Sometimes maybe yes, but we ask for a cat. So he did the same. He is treating the fish as meat, and this has increased the value of fish because he's getting less fish in his fish shop. Is cutting that into pieces, and people go to the fish shop and ask for tenderloin, they ask for bones, they ask for the eye, they ask for parts of the fish. And this helps people also understanding that fish is not just something that you get, you cook, and you just waste the bones, waste the eyes, waste the brain, and other parts that are usually not eaten. Also because we can convince people to eat seaweeds, but we cannot stop people from eating fish and meat. So we have to find a solution to treat the raw material and ingredients better. And also we can talk to the food communities as well. So there is a community in Sicily that thrives on umauro, which is like a collective of red algae that grows only in that area because they need volcanic soil, a certain water temperature, and also the meat of fresh water and salty water. And also we can start contaminating the staples of a country with some seaweeds. That's what we do at my bakery. So we started making seaweed bread, and people are appreciating this. And maybe we're going to start using seaweeds more in our pastry and in our salty things, and see how it goes. So one thing we can learn from the Nordic countries is probably how to treat the ingredients that we have better. So not just as a whole, but as pieces of it. And we always have to remember that what we eat right now is like a complex consequence of invasions, wars, and cultural exchange of materials. One of the most important recipe in Turin is something made with anchovies, and Turin is nowhere near the sea. So it was an exchange with the Ligurian people who has created traditions. So it's too early for this, but suppose you will have some food later because I brought some seaweeds. Thank you for listening, and yeah, 16 minutes almost.
Well, the good news is that we have a lot of time for questions before the break.
Good.
Good? So, yeah. Martin, do you want to start this time?
Yes. Thank you, Giovanni, for the presentation. So I wanted to know but first, how did you felt with the local people? Did you was it the first time in Iceland, and how did you feel by interviewing the local, and how did they feel with your interview? How was it?
So it was my fourth time in Iceland, but I don't speak any Icelandic. So of course, the problem of talking to people is the language. So 10 years ago, we would have needed a guide. Now I have Google Translator, which works perfectly fine. But of course, talking to locals, it depends on the person you talk to, but it's always hard to start. So you might say, okay, it's 33 informants, it's not that much, but it took me 2 weeks to find 33 people actually willing to talk to me. And also, Icelanders are a bit, sorry Matilda, but they're not Scandinavian. So they're Celtics, so they're more open than Scandinavian people to talk to strangers. And so it wasn't that difficult to talk to them, but also I had contacts there that helped me cut the string to people and approach them in positive.
Okay, and about the culture and the harvest in the wild, right? I feel that Iceland is like the paradise for seaweed, right? And
Yes.
what is the limitation, like cultural and culturally and economically? What's the limit to develop this kind of economic business model, or you know?
Well, I would say the market is ready because we need alternatives, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, we don't see it when you go to the supermarket, but the system behind it is actually collapsing. But we still don't see it because we find everything again, as I said before. But people probably are not ready to give up on, and I'm talking about maybe Mediterranean now, avocados, mangoes, peaches, and tomatoes, to eat seaweeds. And I'm not talking about daily diet. I mean, on Tuesday, instead of eating fish, I eat seaweeds. People are not ready for it, but they will have to do it in the future if we don't find other solutions that I don't see, like personally. So we should start introducing seaweeds step by step and not treating them only as Japanese and Chinese sushi stuff, because that's our view in Italy. I mean, if you talk to a person and say seaweeds, they say, okay, let's go eat sushi. But the reality is different. You can obtain a lot of things from seaweeds, and also you can blend, because I was talking before about oyster leaves. Oyster leaves taste like oysters. It's not a seaweed, but it's an alternative to oyster. Of course, I would rather have oysters, but we are in that's the burden of our generation. We are in a period when we have to find solutions to stop overfishing, to stop overkilling animals and stuff like that. I'm not vegan. I eat meat, I eat fish, but generally it's something that we have to think about. And about Iceland, there was, can you put the slides?
Yes,
of course. Because I haven't talked about her because I didn't have much time, but this girl, her name is Jamie Lee. She's a pioneer in farming seaweeds in an area where there is no need for farming, because it's everything in the wilderness. Everything is there. Like it's one of the less populated area of Iceland, and I'm talking about Iceland, which is not really populated. But the thing is that nobody goes into the wild because, of course, it's wet and the weather is not always fine, and I have to work. So all excuses for people not to forage seaweeds. So she's doing this for two reasons. The first one is to have a controlled environment for the seaweeds, of course. And second, to start pushing seaweeds into the market and make it easy access for people. And she also looks at the future very brightly, because she told me, if every person in Iceland would go foraging today, nothing would change into the environment, because we have tons of seaweeds. It's not like Posidonia, they grow very fast. Okay, but I'm seeing a future where a lot of people would go for foraging, and a lot of people withdraw for Ascophyllum nodosum, which are actually doing right now. So she's saying, I would rather have a control farm where nobody touches the environment and sell seaweeds to all Iceland, instead of having people going foraging for them, not to destroy the environment. This activity is not giving her a living right now, because the market is weak, but it's increasing.
Okay. And is there other use, like pharmaceutical or of the algae, like or cosmetic or pharmaceutical use?
Yeah. That's the business that's the economic part on seaweeds that is really developed. What's missing is the food consumption as it is. So there is alga leaf in Iceland. There are other companies in Sweden and other parts of the world. They're producing cosmetics, they're producing meds, they're producing any sort of products for health and for beauty. But there is nobody doing microalgae for humans as they are. And I'm not talking about nori sheets, because those are actually quite common to find. I'm talking about real food coming from seaweeds.
Okay. Thank you, Giovanni.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Guillaume, do you want to continue?
Yes, I have 3 questions. I hope it's okay, Crystal.
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Giovanni. My first question, so you talked about the Mediterranean Sea and you give an example of Sicily. I guess you are Italian, correct?
Yeah.
But you talked in your title about Mediterranean in the broader sense. So I was wondering if you did some benchmark, if you have example or other ideas of algae consumption in other countries in the Mediterranean basin, which is pretty wide sea.
Yeah, but nothing that matters economically. I mean, it matters for the local tradition, but it doesn't matter for investors, I guess. Also, the Sicilian thing is disappearing because the water is now getting too hot, and we're seeing it in these days. It's unlivable out there. But the thing is that in the Mediterranean, I mean, in the temperate zones, seaweeds are large. They form forests, and they're not endangered at all. When it comes to the Mediterranean, seaweeds are little, tiny. So also the biomass that you can get from those is lower. So the threat in the Mediterranean is actually gaining interest in what we find. Also, we cannot eat, and I hope it doesn't start, we cannot eat Posidonia because it's highly endangered and it grows not really fast. So we have to find solutions to talk to the local communities and to start locally and enhance, for example, if we start in Sicily in the area of Catania, so the Mount Etna, and people will start eating seaweeds there, we will have a gastronomical hotspot to start something new. But actually, in the Mediterranean, there are some groups in Greece, some groups in Tunisia. But of course, for what concerns, for example, the Middle East part, we don't have much seaweeds, or not much seaweeds that are edible. And we have scientists saying that Caulerpa taxifolia is edible. Some others are saying that it's not. So we still are developing the idea of what we want to eat as a seaweed. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. And I have a second question related to a point you mentioned just before. What would be your strategy to make the consumers more willing to eat this kind of food and to transform the habits of eating seaweed into a tradition? Because, for example, I was working in Turkey and with an NGO that was trying to work on lionfish, invasive species of fish that was not eaten at all, and they developed an entire strategy at the national level to make it acceptable and fancy for the local communities, but for the local population to eat. But it took years and years. So, what would be a strategy to make seaweed trendy in gastronomy? How would you do that?
Yeah, and you're also mentioning a fish, which is also easier.
Yeah, definitely.
Than a plant of seaweed and algae. Well, the strategy is to take things step by step. As I mentioned before, like contaminating a bit the staples and making people aware and curious about there is something else above sushi, beyond sushi. For example, if we start selling bread with seaweeds, we start making pastry with seaweeds. We're working right now in doing a frangipan with seaweeds. both sweet and salty, and you can use also Condus crispus, another seaweed, as a thickener instead of many others. So I mean, as I mentioned for the tomatoes, it took 80 years for the tomatoes to become a staple. So seaweeds probably will be dead by then. But you know, the strategy is step by step and working locally. Of course, I live in Milan. We can import seaweeds from Iceland. We cannot use local seaweeds in Milan because we don't have sea. And we should, I mean, it's hard to say because I would like it to be fast. Like, okay, we go out right now and we start giving people seaweeds, but they won't appreciate it as it is because they see a dried blade, a dried leaf, and they think of sushi. So if it's not paired to rice and salmon, very high quality salmon, by the way, it's not considered edible.
Thank you. And the last question, so you were talking about this woman doing seaweed farming in Iceland.
Yep.
Is there some technical and legal constraints to do that? Because I mean, in terrestrial farming, basically you own your own land, but when you are at sea, there are some, it's public domain, basically. I don't know how it is in Iceland. So are there some specific restriction and consideration to think about when it comes to farming at sea?
So let's start from foraging. As a private person, you can go forage whatever you want if you use it for a domestic. Then second step, if you are, because I met this woman in Reykjavik, she does shampooing from Ascophyllum. If she does it for a business, she needs permits, and she rents pieces of coast, like in the 2 months that she harvests. So she only can go there. And for the sea, it's the same thing. Jamie bought like a piece of sea. And she has 4 buoys and 4 lines, and she's starting like this, and then probably she is gonna buy more. The problem is that next to her there is a huge company trolling for Ascophyllum for cattle food, like animal food, and they are destroying the mat a bit. So she is actually worried that this can affect our farm, but we actually went out, and she was very, very afraid not to find any seaweeds. You can see from the pictures, there were plenty of seaweeds, and way early than the season, than the usual season. So all the seaweeds you see there, she just take them away and give it to me because it was too early, and they would have gotten rotten. Not allowing other seaweeds to grow. But yeah, she bought pieces of sea, to answer your question.
Yes, thank you very much, Giovanni.
Thank you.
Okay.
Speaking on that, I have a question about the ecological impact of this kind of fisheries. Do you have some information in the scientific bibliography, etc., on the impact, the ecological impact on coastal ecosystem
of seaweed farming?
Yeah.
Or actually, if it's done properly, none, because actually Jamie, she seeds the lines, but she seeds like less than she obtained, because she puts lines in the water, and the water is so rich up there, then they get untouched. Like, it's natural. So you put a line, and after 2 months you find Apalaga sculenta there growing. She doesn't use any pesticides. She doesn't use any. She goes out with a small boat, so she doesn't corrupt the seabed. There are some issues when it comes to. I talked to a guy in Reykjavik. I didn't mention it, but it's going to be in my manuscript about salmon farming. They are developing inland salmon farming, which is completely sustainable because they wash everything before throwing it back in the sea. But there are some offshore farms in the East Fjords, and all the area of the East Fjords is actually damaged for pollution, and it's Iceland, so you think, I mean, it's a lot of ocean there, so nothing's gonna happen. It's not like Norway. So if they had to build like a barrier between the coast and the offshore with seaweed farming, that would probably help the environment. So I don't see any bad consequence in farming seaweeds. Another side, if we had to farm, I don't know, Saccharina latissima in Côte d'Azur, we probably had to build some chambers for lowering water temperature. So that would be probably affecting a big environment. So it's always a matter of how you do it. But what she does is very artisanal. It's like us growing potatoes in our garden. We don't do any harm at all.
And do you talk with the political forces in the field? Is there a political will, a political way to demonstrate the utility of the consumption of algae?
Not this time. I spoke to them in 2016 for another research, and it was about fish quotas. So, I mean, they have fish quotas, and they have renewed them from the Cold War with the UK, because they didn't have like an EZ. So every troll could enter, so they have to make an EZ to prevent this from happening. But at the moment, for what concerns the seaweed farming, Jamie is again the farm girl. She is struggling to obtain like money for it, because they don't see it as a market. Because of course, as I mentioned before, they have a lot of food, and so they have avocados and mangoes as well up there. So they don't see the urge to eat alaria esculenta or ulva lactuca as a salad. They farm salad in greenhouses while they have free salad in the shore. So it's always a matter of, I want to sit on my couch and just open the fridge. I want to go foraging for 2 days. So
this is my point. Without a political will, without a political force, this is very difficult to change the population, to change the habits. So my question is about the project strategy, and maybe the political, the first person to talk about these issues.
And it's always a matter of money at the end.
Yeah,
it's always capitalism. So when the market will become important, the politics say, "Oh well, hey, hi, do you want 5 million? I can give it to you." Yeah, that's the issue. And luckily, we still have people going forage for Palmaria palmata, at least. So they keep on a bit the tradition of eating seaweeds. Yeah, I was expecting a different outcome from this research. But because I always talk to food nerds, so I always talk to people who just know a lot of stuff in food. I usually don't talk to regular people in Iceland. So if I go there, I talk to them, but usually I don't. So, yeah.
And last question is the creation of algae burger. Maybe you can mix the like burger, that like the first seaweed. So maybe we can mix the two.
Why not? Instead of soy and all the things that are related to that, why not? I mean, in Ireland, for example, they have a bread called laverbread. It's made from nori seaweed, and it's like a sort of pancake, but it's a bit leavened, and it's still a staple in the south of the country. And they use it also for as a meat substitute. But again, they don't need a meat substitute right now. They will need it in the future.
No, maybe it's a first step,
Yeah, definitely.
It's okay.
Cool, perfect. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I do not go. Look.
Oh my God, this is our revenge.
But it's over for the party, like the question of jury. But yeah,
15 minutes is gone, guys.
Yeah,
please.
I know.
Let
But
me go.
just like we can open to the public. Just
No.
more like
Yeah. No, I'm wondering about the toxicity, if there are any issues with that, especially if you cultivate next to a fish farm that might release, I don't know, antibiotics or whatever pollution, if there are any problems with that.
Definitely. I mean, but like toxicity now is everywhere, so we need to find a balance. I mean, I was foraging with this girl in Reykjavik, and she said, "No, let's not go here because it's polluted." And I was like, Have you seen Contextualizing? Have you seen Italy? That's pollution. So they have also another perception of what's polluted and not. And for concerns, having, of course, a barrier of seaweeds in front of a fish farm, it's definitely gonna play a role for the fish more than the seaweed. So it's gonna be like an incentive to protect the fish and protect the environment rather than eating those algae. But all the nori we consume, all the seaweeds we consume comes from seas that are really polluted. So it's all the tomatoes we eat, we don't know if it's organic, and even though if it's organic agriculture allows a lot of bad stuff in it.
But is it easy to check the quality of the seaweed? If people need to farm more seaweed, would it be easy or feasible for them to check the?
I have no idea. At the moment, they check it manually. So if the seaweed has animals on it, it means it's healthy.
Okay.
So they have like small, very small crustaceans usually biting. Like it's like mantis or bugs in the terrestrial plants. They have small crustacean biting the leaves. So if you have, it's like having ladybugs on a tree. If you see ladybugs on a tree, you see it's not contaminated. If you see these small crustaceans on the seaweeds, it means they're good. And they have something like, if they change color, it means that the pH of the water has been altered, or the the balance of nutrients has been altered. So you can see it very clearly if it's not the right color and the right wealthy.
Okay.
Hello there. I have a question for you.
My supervisor.
Kind of supervisor. So you said that, okay, now we eat algae, it refers directly to sushi leaves, sushi sheets, and that the way to consume them would be to integrate algae in daily ingredients like bread, etc. Don't you think the algae, the biomass itself, could be part of our daily food?
I do.
Okay.
I do. It's not me, it's the people. I mean, it's
yeah, but don't you think if we start only by integrating small parts of the biomass within daily ingredients, people will never consider the whole biomass as a sea vegetable, for example?
Well, I'm not talking about additives. I'm talking about, for example, making capers from ascophyllum, so using those as capers. I'm talking about, there is a guy in Iceland that it takes Palmalia palmata, it layers them, it's like he is crazy. He layers the Palmalia palmata until it becomes this thick. Then it smokes it and then cooks it as meat.
Okay.
And it's quite good. But before this step, of course, we need to let people know that that's edible, because we don't know what's edible. There are 2,000 species and we know about 20, 25. We have a lot of fucoids and they're all edible. All the fruits, all the reproductive part are edible, but we don't know how to use them besides pickling them for now.
Okay.
So yeah, I agree. I mean, I would rather eat like a very good steak from seaweeds than soy or other things that are farmed in South America, but it's gonna take time.
Okay, so you think it's gonna be better accepted if it's firstly integrated into?
We can do both things at the same time. It's not a matter of, it's a matter of how people respond. I know that people in Italy will respond badly because they're very linked, connected to their tradition. Maybe people in northern France and northern Spain would react differently. People in Austria will react differently. But for what concerns Italy, we are very tough on food.
Yeah, in France we consider algae as a toxic green.
Yeah. And it's crazy because it all started with the Greeks and the Romans. Like everything evil in the sea was algae related.
Yes.
And I have no idea why. I mean, they haven't tried.
Squid related as well.
Squid related, yeah.
Cool. Well, you do have also some, there was people cheering up, of course, Clara was here also.
Thank you, Clara.
Really well done. So yeah.
Thank you.
Really well done. I guess just an open question, no worries in that part. But for me, it's just like, thank you for this presentation. And it's more like, so as a manager also, like, so from this professional project, what are you taking up? And so what is your next step? Because we will not be, we will not have a next presentation with you in a couple of months, but it's just interesting to know from everything you learn, what are you going to take?
Well, I'll keep reading on Seaweeds. I have 3 books in my bag. And we will start working at the bakery because we are going very well right now and we are known for introducing new ingredients. So basically, the reason I opened the bakery was to work with endangered products. So flowers, but also vegetables and fruits. So this is another step. So using things of the sea to bake, which is not brand new, but it's quite new in Italy. And we'll see. I would love to do a PhD in the future, not right now because I almost killed myself with a master. So and a business, so PhD maybe in the future. But let's see. I will keep working on Seaweeds for sure because I love them and it's yeah.
So I guess the message is that we need to visit the bakery of Giovanni.
I will try the bread today.
Okay, well, thanks a lot. Okay, so we're just going to have a little break. So we will be back on live at 11. See you. Has Wiliam arrived? So hi, we're back on live, and so we're here for the final presentation of this morning about blue value chain, and it will be so with Wiliam, and we are still here with our three jury members, Jean-Vincent, still have also Guillaume and Martin with us. So thank you for joining us, and so here is also Wiliam. So Wiliam, the floor is going to be yours. You will have 15 minutes of presentation and then 15 minutes of questions. I'm just adding your slides on, and you can start whenever you're ready.
All right. So I'm here today to present my project, which I've been calling Phycosoft. And I think you'll find that this is going to be probably one of the most abstract presentations that you'll see, but I'm also happy to tell you that it's a hair's breadth away from being a concrete product with some real value propositions. So, as you've probably heard me talk about this entire year, there's a lot of energy in the seaweed sector in general, especially with things like MERRY. This little jar of lotion can cost upwards of 600 euros, or for the top end stuff. And then we've got luxury lingerie made from a combination of seaweed alginates and cellulose fibers from birch trees or potentially eucalyptus. Then we've also got food-based hydrocolloids that we can use as food stabilizers or emulsifiers, and some of our favorite foods like ice creams here. And then this might look like a nutraceutical or some smoothie juice, but this is actually a biofertilizer. And we've got emerging applications such as press bricks, press boards. This is actually a Thai company whose founder is the youngest billionaire in Thailand who came up with these seaweed snacks. And of course, we're all familiar with sushi. And I have it on good authority that in my current town of Toulouse, there's been an increase of over 500% in sushi and ramen restaurants recently. So we can see that there's just a lot of activity. This is part of the team, and Anne Pajot has so much experience that just couldn't fit on this slide. And we met we met about every other week just to discuss my project and what I've been working on and the course. And then Leah Brown, she was able to talk with me about some of her own work in developing more robust LCA frameworks for, her work was mostly focused on microalgae, but there's a lot of potential for overlap there. So this is where we start getting abstract. When I first started this project, it wasn't really possible because this has been a long saga in LLM-assisted code development. At this point, I've got close to 100,000 lines of tested running code that I've developed painstakingly over the past 4 months. And in the beginning, it's just, hey, ChatGPT, write me this code that will run a Python, calculation on, on just what kind of biomass we can extract or what the different chemical compounds within each stage of different processing steps. And it says, oh, sure, here you go. And I paste it over to my IDE, add it to my code base, and that was just kind of the entry. Months down the line, I'm running multiple parallel processes, test-driven development, which counteracts some of the shortfalls in LLM development. One of the big issues is obviously hallucination and context size. And the more information that you give an LLM, the more likely it is to start making things up. So this involves a lot of tricks to progressively disclose information, feed it tasks at a slow pace. And one of the big things is you need to know what you're doing. You can't just say, okay, give me this. So I need to learn things like, what is a venv? What is GitHub? What is a .env? What is a knowledge graph? What is a dependency? And why are all of them gone all of a sudden? What is poetry? You might think you know what poetry is, but poetry is actually a testing framework for Python code bases. What is PNPM? It's a package manager. All of these things, I had to learn through trial and error as they became roadblocks in my development process. Another big aspect of this was early on, I built some techno-economic analysis and LCA calculators for my project. And I just said, okay, let's build this. Let's talk about how many man hours are required to operate certain equipment, what's the rough energy input that we're going to do. And then you find out that there's OpenLCA, a group of German software engineers who have been providing this open source framework that includes things like Sankey diagrams, energy flow, mass balance transfer, and a lot of the things that I was aiming at, but they've been working on this for years as part of their own initiatives. On top of that, as you can see, it was definitely a learning experience. And this pattern applies to many things, where I would go into something saying, okay, let's build this little aspect of my system from the bottom up. And then the more mature approach is actually to look at what open source tools are already out there, have been tested, and have a community, and then kind of make a judgment call on each place, whether I should integrate it or whether I should build something new tailored specifically to my system. So the results. There are quite a few features packed into Phycosoft. And I know I haven't talked about exactly what it does yet. And that can be a difficult question because it's a platform. It allows users to interact with data in a number of different ways. So that means that they can kind of bring their own use cases to it. But at its base, the first couple of weeks I spent developing a scalable and detailed value chain modeling logic, which means we could create a database schema that includes unique identifiers for different processes, different equipment, different species, different strains of equipment, compounds you can get out of it, and working out the framework of how all of these pieces fit together. So that was the first couple weeks of my project. And then on top of that, so that resulted in the PostgreSQL database of the top 6 commercial Seaweed processes. And so in that particular database, I have 42 processes with the 6 different species and a large collection of parameters involved with the different processing steps. I owe a lot of thanks to the Phyconomy database for the commercial aspect of this. The Phyconomy database was a project of a developer a couple years back who aggregated specifically the Seaweed companies, the species that they work with, the locations, and investments that they received or made between each other. And that was a big help to get started to kind of get an overview of the geographical distribution of different species and applications and businesses. One of the more exciting things is a knowledge graph. Now, a knowledge graph is a different kind of database. And the way I produced this was by crawling through hundreds of academic papers. The LLM will extract what are called triples. And a triple consists of 2 entities and a relationship. So that could be company A, processes species B of seaweed, or in Africa cultivates ulva, or it could be anything. It's a very scalable and flexible database framework. And what that allows is for very complex queries to be made when you want to try to do value chain modeling. What I've been working on the most recently is a front-end user interface. And what the front-end user interface is meant to do is a user can start by adding a node. And when I say a node, I mean basically an entity within an integrated value chain. So that could be as simple as just the user says, okay, we have a cultivation operation and it produces 2,000 tons of laminaria each year. And we are located here. And just by then querying the database, it will provide you with 2 or more integrated value chains and automatically output TEA and LCA figures on the different configurations. The hope here is that by enabling kind of a high-level side-by-side comparison of different integrated frameworks, it can let stakeholders get an idea of what their options are, what things they might be leaving on the table, and also what techniques might be more capital intensive than their current resources, might not be suited to their particular region. So that's kind of the core of the values, being able to take a high-level look at how integrated seaweed processing systems can be designed. Now, a big problem with this is that most of this is theoretical. You know, there are plenty of different companies that have kind of one-off arrangements where, okay, we grow this species, we extract alginate, and we've got this byproduct, and by sheer luck over the years, we found someone who wants that byproduct, and they do something with it. The hope with Phycosoft, the system, is that it can take some of that guesswork, or it can take some of that chaos out of it, and as opposed to just relying on chance or personal connections, this can actually be a framework or a platform for people to make those connections and potentially extract more value out of the seaweed biomass that's cultivated and achieve better results. So as for things that are running right now, so all of this integrated value chain system that I've been talking about, all the codes there, I'm testing it, still working on it, still gonna be a little while. If you were to look at the website right now, I do have auto-updating literature reviews on emerging applications. So that means I took things like pharmaceuticals, construction materials is my personal favorite, even though it's off in the distance, textiles, agricultural, and what these literature reviews do is provide kind of a comprehensive summary of the state of the art for this application, what species are used, and some of the key parameters like you know, how much alginate is contained in a given species, or what's the fiber length in another species. So that's up and running. The dual layer TA and LCA engine, that's something we talked about already. And now kind of comes the fun stuff. When a user gets to the website and they sign up, they can choose, you know, are they a solo researcher? Are they part of a company? Are they part of a university? And when they onboard, they're able to put in data that kind of contextualizes their place within the overall ecosystem. And they can also post, which is kind of fun. So it's, you know, on top of all of this kind of analytical and quantitative stuff, it's also just a blog site that users can share posts on, you know, for new studies that come out, or make comments about projects that they're working on. And then it's got, you know, kind of the basic back-end web stuff like secure payment, SSO authorization, and a couple other things built in. So one of the things that, you know, kind of calls everything into question is, you know, how do you market, you know, a product for something that is largely theoretical? You know, a system like this could probably be most lucrative if I said, okay, this is mine. I'm going to keep it and I'm going to launch it as you know, a consulting firm on my own. But that kind of defeats the purpose, or at least my dreams, which is to provide a tool that can facilitate more activity in microalgae processing. So that's why kind of this last stage of development I've been working on has kind of focused on some of the communication features built into the system that can let stakeholders communicate and talk to each other. They can even work on integrated systems together. So one user might be associated with a processing plant, another user might be associated with a cultivation effort, and each of them can add their data to a blueprint, and that will affect the the data that's put out. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, some of the limitations of the way that I've been building this project, LLMs will lie to you. Or if you don't know that they're making a mistake, they'll make the mistake and say everything's great. They'll give you mock data so that your tests will pass, but that's just because they want to say, oh, the tests are passing and now we can move on. But it's all lies. And you have to, that's kind of the part of the learning curve, is being able to know enough about all of this to know when you're being misled and guide things back on track. More than once, I've had important data just completely deleted because it's unpredictable. Let me try another approach. So it's been frustrating at times, but at the same time, like I said, I have over 100,000 lines of code now. Most of it's testing, most of it's cleaning the tests with actual data, not mock data. And that would often, just a year or two ago, that would have taken a developer or two a year or more. And I've been able to do that in the past 4 or 5 months. Data quality is a big issue. Most of the data I get comes from PubMed or using search tools such as Tally or Serper. To ensure data accountability, every time I pull figures out of something, we record what paper that comes from to make sure that it's accountable and that we can trace it. But also at this stage, it's more about getting the system in place and then later auditing the data in kind of an ongoing process. That's never going to be done. That's always going to be an ongoing process of auditing the data. So the next steps that I've been working on right now is integration testing, which means getting all of these pieces to work together and tying them to the front end so that users can actually view and manipulate this data. Initial deployment, which is very close. I was hoping I'd be able to say, oh, and after this, you can go to the website and you can look at the blogs and the updating literature review, but we're just shy of that. I hope to reach out to Leah again, and I hope Anne might be interested in doing some beta testing in the next phase. And also, I hope that I'll be able to reach out, or I plan on reaching out to Monaco Tech because we had our field trip there, and one of their priorities is to look for projects that have a very small footprint, but potentially a large impact. And I think that this could fit that bill. But then again, we get back to the project where I'm kind of anticipating a scenario where this tool becomes more useful than it is right now, because there's a lot of CapEx involved in having an integrated processing system, but it also involves a lot of benefits when you get to co-locate things and coordinate these things.
Thanks, William. So yeah, we will open the floor to the question. I think we can start this time with Jean-Vincent, and I will go to Martin and Guillaume.
Do you have financial needs aspect or budget aspect?
So that's kind of the fun part of this. This probably cost me about $1,200 to $1,500 in API costs, subscriptions, buying domain names, buying a couple software tools, but it was mostly just hundreds of hours of trial and error, getting these pieces to work bit by bit. And I might be one of the first people in the world to try to do this mode of development is often called vibe coding. I prefer to call it vibe project management because I'm not really doing the coding. What I am doing is I'm managing a whole bunch of imperfect but very talented workers and making them work together to achieve my project. So I might be one of the first people saying this, my academic project is a tool that I produced in this manner. But it is kind of indicative of the new reality where I'd say that in the past, software and web design was almost like brain surgery. You need a lot of background detail, you need a lot of very detailed information, and you need a lot of experience. But now I think it's more like motorcycle maintenance. You need to be able to understand the mechanics. you need to have some level of intelligence, and you need to have the drive to do it. The stakes are still high. If you mess up with your cycle maintenance, you can get yourself in trouble. If you do sloppy development, you can expose credentials that could open you to massive liabilities. So there's still high stakes, but at the same time, the cost and the accessibility has come way down to someone who is driven and kind of has a vision that they want to achieve.
Okay. Okay, so let's go with Martin.
Yes, thank you, Brennan, for the presentation. It was a bit foggy for me. I'm going to ask you one question, and I need you to answer like in one sentence. What is the mission of your company? What is the mission in one sentence? How would you explain it?
To provide a platform that allows for planning of integrated macroalgae processing systems. Multi-stakeholder.
So now can you also, if you summarize, can you give me a concrete example of how you apply it on the field? Like how does it work? Who are the partners? And try to synthesize, please.
Yeah, and so this is an interesting thing because a lot of times this is, they're disparate business operators, and I'm assuming a system where they can kind of work together. So I'm actually thinking a lot about municipal, coastal marine planners when I think about this kind of targeting. But for example, let's say you have an established processing plant that's producing alginate somewhere. The owners or someone who's working at that plant can go in, say, okay, here we are. This is the species we're working in. This is our facility. It produces about this much. And then with this system, it will show you different nodes. And by nodes, I mean processing steps, which could be either the enzymatic extraction or it could be biochar production. It could go at the very beginning, or it could go at the very end. It will find available nodes to go in and auto-populate them into an integrated blueprint for you.
And so what's the goal? So you have this producer going into your application. What's the interest for, I think, the buyers, or what's the added value you bring to the market?
So I think the most obvious value would be if I was an investor, or if the user is an investor with lots of money to spend, and I say, okay, I want an integrated facility where we've got some enzymatic extraction over here, we've got alginate extraction over here, then we extract some fibers, and we get the rest and we turn it into fertilizer. That's a very CapEx intensive system to put together. And this actually is probably one of the greatest weaknesses that I've been trying to call back to with my product, is that my Phycosoft is meant to serve as a platform for coordination of making these integrated things. So you either need to have a very large investor, or you need to have different stakeholders within a single community saying, all right, this is what we have, this is what we can still do, this is what's, these are the opportunities that are being left on the table.
Okay. So I think I need a draw or something to see it in it's not really clear for me at the moment. I understand what you're saying, but it's not really clear how you apply it in the real life. So, but I understand it's the beginning. So it's okay for me for the questions. So Guillaume.
Okay.
Thank you, Brennan.
We can go back to Wiliam after maybe. So Guillaume, if you want to.
Yes, thank you. I am in the same position as Martin, to be honest. Maybe it's too away from my field of expertise, but I didn't fully understand what it would look like concretely. For example, in how many months or years will you be ready to launch it? And concretely, what it will look like on the field for the buyers, the stakeholders that will use it, I still don't get it.
Okay, could you maybe target that question a little bit more?
I think it's the same as Martin asked, like the end goal of the project and a concrete example, because with the one you gave before, I still did not understand. Maybe I am limited in this kind of topic, but I didn't see the big picture of what you are trying to achieve. Sorry.
Okay, well, at the risk of repeating myself, let's say in one location you have one processing facility, and they're established. They might even be profitable. One of the hardest things in seaweed data is that growth rates and alginate compounds and other the content of different compounds can vary drastically according to the season and the temperature. So that's kind of one element of complexity that definitely makes things difficult. But the idea is that there is cascading potential for many different seaweed strains, but many of those opportunities might still be left on the table. And if you use the system, you can say, this is what we have, and the system can compare. You can see what other processes can exist prior to the existing process, and what other processes can exist after the existing process. And you could potentially derive more revenue from all of these. So that can change the economics of downstream products. And also it gives a platform for tracking the life cycle assessment, like what inputs are going in, how many resources are being consumed. So it's an integrated planning tool.
Okay. So basically, if I'm let's say a seaweed producer, you will show me ways of improving my transformation process, for example, or you will provide me with some new opportunities of diversification to optimize what I'm doing.
Potentially, a seaweed cultivator could use the system and say, okay, well, we've got one customer who's, getting hydrocolloids, but, there's still opportunities to use the byproducts after that. And then they could potentially look for another partner who would then use that byproduct, or potentially a partner who would do enzymatic extraction before alginate extraction. And the kind of social and communication features built into the website kind of also offer a way to facilitate that. I think there is kind of a bit of a mismatch because the internet often brings people apart over long distances. I'm actually more interested in bringing communities together, because I think that the potential for cascading biorefinery in local communities that are tailored to local economic realities has a lot of potential. And I think that this is really just a platform for exploring those options, for asking what if questions.
Okay. And one last question. So your platform is meant to be able to address challenges all around the world, or will it be targeting some specific geographical areas?
So yes, right now, when you talk about whether we want it to be global or not, we would want to bring in like ERDAP and some kind of heavy duty ocean data on nutrient flows and temperatures. Right now, it's just general climate, tropical, subtropical, and regional. So we can look that up kind of manually. But in the future, I do hope to add more granular data integration for actual nutrient and local temperatures as well.
Okay, so you will need a lot of scientific data and okay. Thank you very much.
I think Martin, you wanted to address another question.
Yeah. Brennan, is there something that already exists on the market, looking like what you're doing?
Yes, but not specifically for macroalgae.
In agriculture, for example, in agriculture or
yes. So, for example, OpenLCA is a big one. The name of the German there's another German software company that has a proprietary tool for doing more advanced chemical modeling. The name escapes me at the moment. So yes, there are tools for. Oh, and then there's also the Seaweed company, and they focus more on actually what Guillaume was just talking about. They focus more on cultivation parameters and the climatic conditions that produce variations in seaweed harvest there.
Okay.
I've completely lost my train of thought. I apologize. So I didn't finish answering your question. Could you please reiterate for me?
Sorry?
I didn't finish answering your question. Could you please?
No, I think it needs to be easiest to understand. We are here to understand your concept, and I missed it. Maybe it's something genius, but I missed it. So I'm sorry. And I think for the next step, maybe make it easier since the beginning. Explaining what's your added value, what's your mission. In clear words. Because for me, it's a bit still a bit foggy.
Okay, I can do that, and I think that.
So yeah.
If you want to distill the value proposition down to something really small, with this platform, you should be able to produce data and documentation that traditionally would take a team of consultants a couple weeks. You could get that maybe in an hour by configuring the system and querying my databases. And it's not meant to be a replacement for these consultants and for the people, the very detailed planning that goes into these sorts of operations, but it is meant to serve as a way to visualize it in a holistic fashion, as opposed to diving into the nitty-gritty first.
Yes. What kind of person can add more data in the system? You control that?
Yes, so that's something it's currently under consideration. Right now, all the data is stuff that I have extracted from academic papers, or I have aggregated from other databases and tied into my own data framework. I do think that I will add kind of permissions to the user level so that certain users who are in a position to provide quality data and who actually want to, because maybe not everyone wants to share their data, can do so. But that is kind of one of the next future steps.
Yeah, but yeah, in the academic field and bibliography scientific area, there is a lot of controversy between different articles. Mm-hmm. So how do you take the reality, the real information?
And that's jobs for real scientists. That's jobs for the consultants that I was talking about before. I'm not trying to replace those people, but I am trying to give them a framework to get up and running very quickly. So I'm not positioning this as like I mentioned, data quality is going to be an ongoing issue. It's always going to be an issue. I've got a couple of tools set up for just making sure that things pass the smell test. So earlier on, when I was extracting data into my knowledge graph, there would be things where like Kenya contains laminaria, and that doesn't quite make sense. You could say that Kenya is laminaria might be harvested off the coast of Kenya, but corrupted or kind of mistaken data can certainly sneak its way in, and this is like an ongoing process. And so that's why my emphasis is kind of on more like a blueprint sketch, being able to look at the high level of what integrated value chains might look like. And then once we have these kind of options, we've got like a starting point, then we can go with that. But also the database is meant to accommodate ranges, and is made to kind of reconcile disparate numbers, but it's not an easy process and is always going to be ongoing.
And how do you choose the good scientists? Maybe it's not alone. Maybe it's many scientists in the same field, very specialized, etc. But who choose them?
I'm sorry, like who chooses like which papers?
The consultant, the scientist who can validate the data. You can use,
Yeah. Honestly, I haven't given that much thought to that question. My focus is on getting the broad system to work, and then iterative refinement, and that's kind of been the whole theme of my development process. Is you kind of splash it out there. It's not perfect. You find the refinements. You make it better, and I'm confident that the data I have now is better than the data that I first had in my initial extraction runs, and I try to include flexibility so that contradictions will be made apparent, but there's no easy answer. It's not meant to serve as your definitive decision-making data. It's meant to I keep going back to giving you this kind of bird's eye view of these different what-if scenarios.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Thanks. I'm just turning if you have a little question for Wiliam. Something to add if you followed in, perhaps.
Yeah, is it? You told me earlier that you had the kind of a beta version of this platform that only you can open. Is it possible for us to see it?
I'm not sure what you mean. Oh, like the knowledge graph?
Like the website.
I have the website.
You showed me last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and the website is on my computer right now. I don't think the knowledge graph connection is live right now. The knowledge graph is hosted on a virtual private server. So if I open up the knowledge graph, it looks like 28 little nodes, almost like a little DNA or something. But the actual one has 6,000 different nodes with about 10,000 relationships. But I could open my computer if you want to see what the website looks like right now.
Oh, yeah. You can connect. You do have the link?
No, it's locally hosted on my computer.
Okay.
So I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe online it would be more difficult to share.
Oh no, it's locally hosted.
Okay.
So okay, I don't know. Wait, so should I?
There is one camera here.
Wait.
Yeah, the same issue.
Maybe it's one here if you want, just in front of the computer. And you can show it.
So I can't. Okay.
I don't know how easy it will be. Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of hard to see from here, but on the homepage we have these literature reviews.
Approach your computer.
Yeah, I will manage at the same time.
Okay. So in the literature reviews, we talk about different applications: bioplastics and packaging, construction materials, agriculture and biostimulants. And if you go inside, it's got different data on just where it's relevant, key applications, some technical specifications, limitations, recent breakthroughs, some economic metrics, sustainability metrics. Let's see, the blueprint builder. Oh, this is not the one that I really like. All right, so we're stuck on an earlier version, but this is a drag and drop screen here, and you can go here, you can drag a species. Once you drag a species, you can open it up, and you can put in some parameters like, the price that you expect to get, what your production is, and there's some also, it's missing some pieces.
But it gives a view already.
And then there's, the directory for users, for, different researchers and stakeholders so that they can, communicate with each other. And, this is kind of a fun one here, the knowledge graph. However, it's stuck on the mock implementation right now. The actual database is a cloud of thousands of these. And, profile creation, login, contact, kind of standard, but it's what I'm working with.
Will it be an application or it's directly on the web?
It will be directly on the web.
okay. Do you have any question? No, I think we're all good. We're on time. Thanks, William. Well, thank you for being with us. So, of course, for the one watching us online, it's not over. You can join the Science and Society session also on YouTube. We're still live until noon. And for us, we will finish. But you can come back this afternoon. We will start back at 2 p.m. and we will have the last session with the Blue Manager about communication and communities. Okay. Yeah, we're just finishing. So thank you and see you online at 2 p.m.